I've made a few videos on the channel where I have preserved food. At Christmas time I made some caponata. Here it is, look, and I am preserving it in this glass jar. Also, a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago, I made some tomato which I then chopped in sauce, and I am preserving it in this glass jar also. And I will be making in future actually some tomato passata following some feedback from the video. I've bought myself the little food meal and I will be doing that in another video. However, today I am making some preserves of eggplants, marinated eggplants. And I've got 3 here, and I'm going to show you the principle so that you might want to replicate it, especially in the summer months where there seems to be an abundance of eggplants or melanzane, or indeed aubergines as they're called in the UK. I'll tell you a little bit about the origin of the word actually. Take this one here. This is a melanzana in Italian, and the word comes from mela, which is apple, and insana, which means kind of bitter. If you think about cooking apple, it's a bit bitter, and that is where the word comes from. And in English they use aubergines, and that is actually a French word which has been adopted by the English, UK English, from the French in culinary sort of terms. Whereas in the States, which is the one I like most, is called eggplant. And that is because the earlier versions of the plants, they used to be white, the eggplants, and they used to be smaller, and they resembled the shape of an egg. And that has actually stuck in the tradition of what they call it in the States. So I'm actually now removing the little head from each one of my eggplants, melanzana or aubergine, and I'm chopping them, slicing them in about 1 centimeter pieces, just like this. I'm using a bread knife, as always, is considerably easier. This is something which they do quite a lot in southern Italy, but where I come from in Sicily is still actually something that many families do make, because it's very simple, very easy, and also they've got an abundance of eggplants over there, so they do make them quite often. So I'm going to show you the process today, but it does require a little planning, so it is easy, but you do need to take your time. So I just put a layer of my eggplants at the bottom of I'm using today an oven container here, but you can use anything you like, mostly because it's transparent and then you can see what I'll do. So I'll start by applying a little salt on the first layer, and do not worry, it looks like I'm putting quite a lot of salt. That is fine. The purpose here is to ensure that they release all or a lot of their water. And I'll do again with another layer, as you can see, putting them in, and there it goes, and I'll put some more salt. And again, do not worry about the quantity, because this will be washed off later. So stage number 1 is nearly complete. I've got a little plate here. You can use anything that you have in your kitchen. So I'll put that on top of my eggplants. And here are some weights, and whatever you've got available really. I've got some weights which we use in our little gym in the garage. So we used to, the children do. And I'll just pile it up on top. You can use a stone, you can use a pot full of water, as long as you've got obviously the ability. And the more you put, the better, because what you want is pressure, and that pressure is what will help the water coming out from the eggplants. So just as much as you can, as long as obviously you don't break your plate. And there it is. So there's quite a lot there. I've got about 10 to 12 kilos of weight. And I'll leave them for a few hours, and the water will be released by my eggplants, and in a few hours time I'll tell you how long it'll take. Once I'm back, you will see that there'll be a little pool of water underneath, and I'll show you what to do next. See you later. 5 hours later, and I am back, and I'm going to show you now the miracle of the eggplants. So let's remove all of the weights first. They are 12 kilos, by the way. I've counted them, so you got an idea, but obviously whatever you have. So let's remove the plate next. You can see immediately how much water has been released by the eggplants with the salt. Look, I'll show you here. That is quite remarkable. So the first thing to do is to separate them from the water. So I'll just transfer them into a little bowl like this. Also, I want to show you how much they've shrunk in terms of the thickness. If you remember, this was 1 centimeter, and now it's about half a centimeter. The longer you leave them under pressure with the weight, the more they will shrink. But in my case, bearing in mind that my eggplants were only very small, they're fine because they are fairly tender. But obviously, if you're using a larger eggplants, which may be a little bit tougher, you might want to leave them for longer. Some people actually leave them overnight. Entirely up to you, but do ensure that you end up with something which is considerably thinner than what it was when you started, at the very least half. The next step is to blanch them, and this is very important. Arti will serve 3 purposes. I'll go down here so that I can measure. I'm going to be using some vinegar. This is distilled vinegar, and I'm pouring at the moment 250 milliliter in a jug, and the ratio is 3 parts water and 1 part vinegar. So depending on how many eggplants you're doing, you might want to do more or less, but I've only got 3 little ones. So I'll top up this with my kettle now until I reach 1 liter. So I get my 3:1 ratio. And as I mentioned, it is important as it services 3 purposes. Number 1, this will be what will help removing all of the salt. Number 2, it will lock the color and the texture of the eggplants. And number 3, it will act also as a preservative, because the vinegar will help for the eggplants to last a long time. So I'll put this on the boil on the hob, and then we will blanch them, and I'll tell you how long for.
Synchronize, synchronize.
By the way, I meant to say, you can use any type of vinegar. I used distilled vinegar because it's the cheapest you can find. But if you want to use white wine vinegar or red wine vinegar, by all means, not necessary. You'll pay more money, and that is absolutely unnecessary. Also, whilst this is about to reach the boil, let me explain something about the eggplants themselves. You'll have noticed that I did not remove the peel. It's still attached in there, and that is because I like the texture, and also they will look absolutely fantastic when they are inside the glass. But lots of people remove the peel. I think it's just they don't like the texture. I would say that it's not necessary, and also it's very good for you. So back to my water and vinegar. If you look, it's about to boil, and do wait until it's actually quite vigorous, because this will not need to cook or to blanch for very long. So I'll just add them in gently so that I don't burn myself more than anything else. And do ensure that your pot is not too big, because otherwise you'll end up having to use a lot more vinegar and water than what you need. So you can see what I've done. I used a relatively small pot so that everything fits in perfectly like this. And I will leave now this to blanch for no more than 1 minute. Honestly, you don't want to cook them. You want to stop the clock. You want to blanch them, and then I will drain them. So see in about a minute. And there we go. Minute is up. They've been boiling for a minute, so I'll just go and drain them. Julie follows me, and I'm using a pasta drainer here, just as normal, and I'll actually do this way so you can see. And personally, I think it's a great idea to just add some cold water on top, so that the cold water considerably quickly locks them, and they do not cook any further, because obviously I am lowering the temperature. And now they need to drain, and you will be surprised how much more water will come out. Actually, I'll put them inside this little bowl, and I'll leave them in there for about 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes they will continue cooling down, but also I will drain as much water as possible. Also, during the 5 minutes, to ensure that I get most of the water out, I put my plate back on, and I'll just squeeze, and look, can you see how much water is coming out? It's quite remarkable, actually. Remember, whenever you are preserving any sort of food, you don't really want much water. The less water, the better, but also the less likely is the event of any bacteria developing. So look how much water there is here still coming out. And I think I've done as much as I can, so I can remove this out of the way now, and I'll show you what to do next to ensure that you get them as dry as you can. So here is a clean towel. I'll put it on the floor here, And I'm now arranging my blanched eggplant on top, just like this, and making sure that they do not overlap so that they dry even further. And if you smell them, you will be able to identify that there is also a pleasant aroma coming from the vinegar. And it is important that, of course, you keep to that ratio, otherwise you will have them too strong if you put more vinegar than what the 3:1 ratio, or too weak if you don't put enough. So they are there, and here is another little towel, another clean towel. So I'll put this on top, and I'll start tapping it with my hands, and I will be absorbing now any excess moisture from the top using this towel, and of course from the bottom using the other one. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll place my big wooden board on top, and I'll carry on making the condiment that will go inside the jar with the eggplant. And today we'll be using a varieties of additional ingredients to go with my eggplants, varying from vegetables but also spices. This is a mild chili pepper. Actually, ironically, it's coming from our vegetable patch. Julie gave it to me the other day, and this is great as I get the opportunity to use it now. So you can use mild, you can use very hot, very spicy, you can use it red, orange, whatever you like. Or if you don't have access to fresh chilies, you can use also chili flakes. But regardless of what you do, ensure that you chop it in little pieces, just like I'm doing now. When my mum used to make these, she always used to add lemon zest, so I'm doing the same. This is actually half a lemon, which I used yesterday, and I kept knowing that I was going to make this today rather than throwing it away. So good use of resources in the kitchen. So I'm just take a potato peeler, and I'm slicing a few pieces from the top like this. Not a lot, just enough to give the lovely zesty flavour. And I'll top it up with the other half, as I don't have enough, so that'll be a little bit more. Entirely up to you how much you put in, of course, or as I said, you don't have to put it in at all. These are some dry tomatoes which I purchased in Sicily, but you can buy them anywhere in the world. Good handful of basil. This is absolutely imperative for good marinated eggplants, especially if you want them Sicilian style. This is oregano. I will open it ready for later. And my last couple of ingredients on the herbs front is going to be some rosemary. I got 3 little sprigs over here, and some capers. These are under water, which is salted, so I'm just going to get a few teaspoons and rinse them under water so that I remove the salt. And here we go. Not a lot of anything really, just flavor. And my very last ingredient is going to be olives, my magic olives, which I keep in olive oil. So I'm going to spoon out a couple, 2 or 3 spoons of olives. I don't want any more sun-dried tomatoes, so just olives. And I've got here a combination of black and green olives. So entirely up to you. If you want them just green or just black, you can do whatever you like, or no olives. Obviously, all of this is very optional. You can choose whatever you like. So let's remove this, and let's start to see what our eggplants look like. And by now they should be ready for me to work on. Perfect. And today I'm going to be using one of those jars, a bit like my olive jars. I like to keep them on view, but you can also use a normal jar like a marmalade, or if you look here, the capers jar would also be very good. And the size of the jar depends obviously on how many you're making, but you can also use a more than one jar, of course. One thing though, if you're using this sort of jar, the ones you might have in a marmalade or capers, do ensure that you check the seal to ensure that it's in good quality, because obviously you will be preserving this and you want to make sure that no egg gets in. Let's make a start. So first layer of eggplants goes in, and I always make sure that the very first layer I'm a little bit generous to ensure that I've got a good base. So as you can see, I'm actually putting quite a lot in to start with. There is no particular order on how you do this, but if you just remember your sequence, then you'll make sure that you do not go wrong. I start with the basil, and I'll go anti-clockwise. So a couple of sun-dried tomatoes go in next, followed by a few of my chilies, and a few capers go in, a couple of pieces of lemon zest, And I'll go here the olives, so I'll just throw a few in. And you can choose also to chop the olives if you like, or leave them whole. Mine are very small, so I'm leaving them whole. And before I go any further and put any more of my eggplants, as I've got a little base and something to get my rosemary sprigs in place, I've actually put them in. And then this will obviously release flavour, and you will have seen that I already cut them to size beforehand. But also they will look absolutely beautiful inside the glass jar, especially if you leave your glass jar on display. And start again. So off I go now with my eggplants once again. And if you want to be really strategic, ensure that various other ingredients that you are adding, they are next to the glass so that you can see them from outside, including anything to do with pepper and anything to do with the capers and all of the other ingredients, of course. I think it's all about colors and flavors, and this is a beautiful display, of course. And I'm very near the end. Now, you will have seen that so far I've not added any oregano. That is on purpose. A lot of people add oregano in the various layers as they build it up. I don't, because I don't like to see oregano in the layers, because I think it looks eventually, after a few days, not very nice. So what I do to ensure that I do get the flavor, I put it on top, and then I will be finding my bottle of oil once I wash my hands, and the oregano will be there to give the flavor, but it will not just go everywhere. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, I've got a brand new bottle of olive oil for the job, so let's remove the cap. And I'll start filling this very gently from the side, just like this. And at some point I'll stop, because I need to give time for the oil to just filter its way down until I'm ready to add some more. And off I go again. And this is the point where you need to be taking your time. Do it very slowly, and you will find that you won't get many air pockets, and actually will be faster. So to go faster, you need to go slower. Spoon, and start pushing it down to ensure that all of the oil goes down. And you can see that if I just lift it, and hopefully you'll be able to see on this camera over here, you can see that the oil is finding its way down quite beautifully. So just continue alternating until you are satisfied that it's absolutely chocked with the olive oil. And if you've never done anything like this before, I'll just lift the jar and show you. Can you see, if I press with the spoon, you can see where the level of the oil is up here. So I want to make sure that everything is absolutely covered, otherwise the stuff on the top will be spoiled and potentially could even go moldy. So to ensure that everything is absolutely covered in olive oil. And that will be the same as you start eating them, by the way, because as you pull them out, you will be taking some olive oil with you. And if by the time you put them away, you'll see that the oil level has gone below the top of your eggplants or whatever. Top it up so that everything is covered in oil. But I think I'm there now. So if I close it, and I'll show you, oops, I put too much, never mind. And I'll show you what we've got, and it looks absolutely stunning. So I'll just turn it upside down to ensure that everything is working perfectly. And this will be ready to be consumed within the next couple of hours. So I will test it in about an hour so that I can tell you what it's like. But clearly, leave it for 24 to 36 hours and will be even better. So I'll see you in about an hour when I can see what it's like. I need to go and wash my hands next. See you then.
Synchronize.
And I've washed my hands several times, but that's because more than an hour has passed. Actually, I spoke to my mom, the oracle of food preservation in Sicily, and she suggested actually to get it, you can eat it straight away, of course, because everything is ready, but to get a better flavor in terms of the true indication if you've been successful, you better wait at least 12 hours. So I listened to my mum and I decided to wait for overnight in any case. So I have actually waited about 15 hours. I've got a little bread here and I'm going to do a real proper test. The irony is that my mum started with lots of recommendations and she said, oh, ensure that you keep them under oil all the time and you cover them up, otherwise they will develop mold and so on. She went into mother mode. And the irony is that my mum suffers from dementia. She's 84, but she will have forgotten this conversation that I had with her. But she remembered everything about the preservation of this type of food, and she knew the details. And I found that quite incredible that I can have a conversation with her and 2 minutes later she will have forgotten, and then she will remember. And it's weird. It's a horrible condition, but affects so many people. Yeah. The other thing is that also it makes me think whenever I speak to my mum how precious life is, and we all get carried away sometimes with the day-to-day sadness of things and forgetting actually that life is really short, and we need to enjoy it every day, every moment. You never know what is around the corner. So if you love traveling, if you love cooking, if you love knitting, whatever it is, just go out there and do it. And if you want to channel your passion, open a YouTube channel. Open a channel and share with the world what you want to do. Don't fear judgment. Life is too short, but let's try this beautiful melanzane and see what it's like.
That's going to take a while for you to chew through that now.
Sorry, you're right.
Always.
Do you know what? It's beautiful, but it needs a little salt and a little pepper because I washed it all off. And it's actually something that you can eat as a side. And I've got here some fresh tomatoes. They can go in with very well. Whatever you like. I do not know what this is like after 6 months, but I understand that as long as you keep it preserved, it can last up to a year. The reason why I don't know is because in our house this doesn't last more than 2 to 3 months, the very, very top. But if you do ensure that if you make more than one, you store it in a cool, cool cupboard, dark cupboard, they will last up to a year, I understand, and they're delicious. My mum used to make all sorts. She used to be the queen of food preservation. She used to do with artichokes, with olives of course, and tomatoes as I've shown in another video. So try, experiment, but do ensure that you are safe, you keep food safety standards in mind, depending on where you live of course also. And in this case, always top it up with olive oil. That is really, really critical for preservation, but also for taste.
And don't panic if you're thinking to yourself, oh gosh, this is a lot of olive oil, because we then reuse that and pop that on our salads, and it's even more flavoursome than it would normally be.
Yeah. And the reason why she did say wait 12 hours or so, it's not because it wouldn't have been ready, it's because of the flavors, and then the flavor from the olive, the capers, and then the other spices I've put in. Obviously they will combine with everything else, and the longer you leave it, the better. So try and let me know what you think, and obviously if you make it in such a beautiful little jar, you can leave it on your worktop. Thank you for watching, and good luck if you make it, and if you do, let me know. Arrivederci, grazie, and buon appetito as always.